Success is often preceded by failure, and failure is often preceded by the lack of mitigating mistakes. And as much as I hate to admit to making mistakes, I'm not immune to them. However, people are often blind to the past failures that successful people overcame to reach success. The path to success is a constant battle of avoiding mistakes and pitfalls, and whomever can dodge these bullets the best often has the best chance of reaching success. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the key issues I faced when I first started with Amazon private label and how I overcame them, but more importantly, how I was able to avoid most of them altogether. But first, my name is Crescent, and if this is our first time meeting, welcome to my channel. My passion is sharing tips and strategies on how you can create a successful Amazon FBA private label business. So if you enjoy videos like this, or especially if you've been around my channel, consider subscribing. All right, let's get started. So before I get into the mistakes that I made, I want to mention a couple things that I think are obvious things to avoid or traits one must have when it comes to being successful at anything in life, but a lot of people have trouble or struggle with. The first is shiny object syndrome. And I want to share a quick story, and it's about a dog and a bone. So there's this dog and he finds a delicious bone, and on his way home to enjoy it, he crosses a stream. And while crossing the stream, he looks down to see a reflection of another bone, so he opens his mouth to grab it, when suddenly the bone in his mouth falls into the stream and disappears. So what's the lesson here? When you've set your mind to something, you have to put all your focus and energy into it until you've mastered it. Jumping from one business model to another after a couple weeks or months because you failed once or it was more difficult than you thought is having shiny object syndrome and is a guaranteed path to failure. I see so many people in my community all the time switching from dropshipping one day to Shopify another day, then arbitrage, eBay, Amazon, you name it. Pick a business and master it. There's countless people successful in every industry, yet these people tried them all and failed. Do you think the problem is the business model or the person? So this leads me to my second point, which is taking action. 99% of people fail, and they fail at the 1% point of the journey. What does that mean? They'll spend hours and hours researching and learning about the new business model, but never take a single step to actually starting it. These type of people are professional researchers. A second type are professional product researchers. All they do is product research, but they'll never commit to launching one. Are you one of these people? You can only learn so much by reading and watching these videos. The rest of your knowledge must be learned practically, meaning learning by doing. Okay, so let's start with the mistakes I made when I started with Amazon, and then I'll go over the things that I was able to avoid and how I avoided them. So I'm pretty OCD and data driven. And when I first discovered selling on Amazon, I did what most of you are doing now and learned as much as I could by reading material online and consuming content on YouTube. But unlike a lot of you, I also know that time is money, so I fast-tracked my learning by taking a course. This allowed me to learn everything I needed to know to get started and take action over the course of a weekend. Now, the problem is, regardless of the path you take, is that you don't know what you don't know. And for me, the set of problems I faced which stemmed from my mistake was not learning and fully comprehending the Amazon guidelines regarding the product size and labeling requirements. The first problem I faced was I didn't realize at the time that although my product itself fell within the small size tier as far as its size and weight are concerned, when you add the packaging, the overall dimensions on one side exceeded the small size tier by a couple inches. This of course would have a huge adverse effect on my FBA fees and my profit margin. My supplier had already started manufacturing, but thankfully they hadn't started the packaging yet, so I was able to make a small change to fix the issue. Now, how did I discover that this was a problem? I was reading other people's questions in a Facebook group, and I remember someone complaining about their FBA fees because it wasn't what they anticipated, and it was due to a sizing issue. So I took the time to learn Amazon's tier structure and how your product size and weight can affect the fees. Two more problems I ran into were also product related. I didn't know that the country of origin is required on each unit, as well as a suffocation warning for poly bags that had an opening of 5 inches or larger. Now, I'm not blaming the course content for this oversight. It's impossible for any course to cover every possible scenario, and the guidelines are readily available to anyone online to read. It just boiled down to me not knowing that I needed to know these details. So, there are two lessons to be learned here. Learn by doing, and learn from other people's mistakes. The next set of mistakes has to do with me trying to gain a competitive advantage. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the phrase, all's fair in love and war. Well, this applies to business as well. People are always going to try to gain a competitive advantage, and those methods may not always be fair or by the rules. So I'm not advocating any of these actions or by any means recommending any of it, but when I first launched my product, I didn't have professional photos taken. Photos play such an important role in the success of your product. So with my 20 some odd years of Photoshop experience, I Googled some photos and Photoshopped them. I'm also very aware of violating intellectual property and the ramifications of doing so, but because I think I can outsmart everyone, I doctored the photos up where they were drastically different than the original. I think you already know where this is going. The photos were beautiful and sales were great for a couple of months until one morning when I woke up to realize that my listing was shut down due to a copyright infringement. So without a backup plan to execute right away, I had to resort to using poor photos until I got professional photos taken. For this particular product, I actually didn't go the photography route. I actually had 3D renderings done, which made more sense so that I could insert those renderings into any backdrop or lifestyle photo. So after a few days, my listing was back up with even better photos. The lesson here, if you don't play by the rules, expect to suffer the consequences. Now, the last few mistakes I've made, I'll run through them pretty quick. The first is avoiding bad reviews. Some bad reviews can be avoided altogether if you just spend a little more time creating the content of your listing. I realized this when I had a bad review over something that was completely subjective and had nothing to do with my product itself. The buyer complained that it was too small and didn't look good in the place they put it. So what did I learn here? Be as descriptive as possible, not only in the written description, but communicate as much as you can in the photos so you can avoid any potential issues before they arise. Lastly, the two mistakes I want to share with you has to do with penny pinching. The first is when I received my first product return. I didn't want to lose the few dollars I had in that unit, so I had Amazon put it back into my active inventory for resale. What a huge mistake. The item ended up being damaged and missing a few items, and of course, I got a bad review. The lesson here? It's not worth trying to save a few bucks. And finally, my product was selling extremely well at the target price point I had set when I did product research. I was afraid to change it. Why fix it if it ain't broke? Well, I eventually went ahead and adjusted the price point and increased it $2 a day. After a week, I discovered that my product was actually selling better at a significantly higher price point than what I had originally set. It went from $21 to $28, and it increased my profit margin by a third, from $10 to $15 per unit. The lesson here? Don't undervalue yourself, your work, or your product. Now, let's quickly talk about the things I was able to avoid. By following the methods and strategies that I learned online and through the course, I avoided a lot of the problems that I see people running into every day. These problems include selling patented and trademarked products. These can be avoided so easily if you just spend a little more time doing your due diligence when doing product research. It boggles my mind how people can get trapped with these products. This also includes products that are prohibited and restricted. Again, Amazon has these guidelines available online for everyone to see and avoid, and what the requirements are if you do want to sell them. I was also able to avoid putting my account health at risk, such as with getting initial reviews using gray hat or black hat methods. Again, I'm not advocating using any of these methods or strategies, and I was well aware of the risks, but I was extremely careful, so I was able to avoid any problems with losing reviews or putting my account health at risk. And most importantly, I was able to avoid getting into selling bad products. The criteria to finding viable product niches and methods to differentiate are laid out pretty black and white. It takes time and patience, but you just have to follow them. I see people investing in bad products all the time, and it almost always stems from poor product research because they didn't follow the guidelines and properly analyze the niche. Beginners are constantly trying to convince me that their product idea is viable, and to be honest, I explain to them why I disagree, and if they are insistent on it, I don't argue. It's not that I think that I'm right, it's just that I know what has worked for me and that they are tried and proven methods. And it's not that I think that they're wrong, Straying from standard methodology is precisely how innovations are made and how people discover better and new ways to do things. But just know that straying from these proven methods are untested, and therefore you bear the risks of doing so. And I'm always open to new ideas, so whether you succeed or not, we'll both learn from it. So my final thoughts in this video: I'm hoping that you learned or at least picked up a few things from my personal experiences of selling on Amazon. It's definitely been a long road for me when I think back and reflect on it. What I'm hoping you've learned is that ultimately, if you want to succeed in any business, you need to take the initiative. Learn as much as you can by consuming content and knowledge, but you can also learn from other people's successes and failures. And if you happen to fall victim to any of these mistakes or are met with failure, it isn't the business model that failed. The problem is you. You either consciously or subconsciously chose to ignore these people's experiences or what was taught in the business model. All right, if you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I answer every one of them. And if you're looking for more information on any of the specific topics I talked about in this video, I have tons of content on my channel, including a free mini course which covers everything step by step on how to get started selling on Amazon, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. All right, thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And to make sure you never miss a video, click that bell icon to turn on notifications. There's also a link in the description to our community forums, which you should totally join. And if you're looking for more tips and strategy videos, click or tap over here. And as always, thanks for watching.